Hi everyone, welcome again to this series. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at how you can actually plan and track work items using the Agile process in Azure Board. We'll start the journey by looking at how you can actually define user stories and requirements. Then we'll move on to managing portfolios, bugs, and issues. After then, we'll take a look at how you can actually add work items to your Kanban board. Then would look at how you can actually add details to all these work items you've added to your Kanban board. Then we'll wrap it up with updating your work status. Now let's take a look at how we can actually perform all this from our Azure DevOps platform. Now I'm currently logged on to my Azure DevOps environment. For the purpose of this video, I'll be making use of the DevOps Roadmap project, which I've created using the Agile process. So to start with, I'll click on this and I'll click on the work items under the board. From here, I can start adding my work item. However, in one of my previous videos, I've actually explained that there is a shortcut to doing this also. So if I click on the plus sign here, you can see all the work items that are actually under Agile process. Talking about the epic, the features, which are actually categorized under what we call the portfolio work items. Then we'll talk about the user story, categorized under the product backlog item. Then the rest of the work items, like the issue, the bug, and the tax, are actually categorized under the iteration work items. So all these work items has their own purpose. Let's take, for instance, trying to create a web application. This website will have different pages. We can call creating a website an epic task. Then each of these web pages that we'll be creating under this particular website will be referred to as a feature. Let's even take, for instance, one of the web page. Let's say the cart page, where customers can actually, continue with their order and pay for whatever they want to purchase. On this particular page, we should be able to allow customer maybe cancel their order or return back to their previous page. So we can say this is actually a user story because it's a requirement. Then under this requirement, on this page, we'll want to say, how do we even design this page? How will the background color looks like? Can we even change the page layout of this page? How do we design the page layout? Or even how do we even develop this particular page? So that can come under the tax. Then after we have been able to develop that particular page, we might start getting feedback to say the form is slow, customers are not able to complete the form, or they're not even securely signed in when actually completing the form. Then we'll refer to that as a bug, and that will be treated as a bug. So let's even see by adding some of these work items from this Azure board and take a look at how we can actually categorize all these work items and manage them effectively. So, like I said, I'm going to start with adding an epic, which will say create DevOps ng website. This is an epic. This will categorize, this is an epic. This is to say this is what we intend to achieve. Yes. But this cannot be managed, if you go to the sprint now, you cannot manage this particular task item. So we need to add what we call, the iteration work items like the issue or the tax, to this particular work item. So how do we do that? So I can go ahead and create another work item. At this point, I'm going to be creating a feature like I've actually said. So the feature is to create a, and say create the login page yeah, which is fine. Then we can create another one to say we're going to be creating another feature, and I say create about which. Yes. So I can head back to the work items under the epic work item that I've created and add those two feature items that I've created as child to this particular item. Is to add existing items. Then we check this to add those items as child. So we have two items currently, which are the features and yes, this. Then we can go ahead to at least add those guys. So currently we have those work items currently linked to my epic work item. Then the next thing is to create another work item. You know, now I'll be creating a user story because that's the next thing to create. Then I'll click on user story. So my user story can say I want to, you know, design a login page. So all other descriptions, whatever you want to add, acceptance criteria, what are some of the things that needs to be done, can be added to this user story. So that I'll create. Then I'll go ahead to save. Then the next thing for me is to start adding tags. So if I go back to, you know, I can decide to add the tags from here, but because I want to link them directly, to the user story, I'll rather go to the board, and do this from the board. So from here, I can add as many tags as I want. So one of the tags is maybe change background color. Then I can decide to add another tags to say maybe um change the page layout. So you can rearrange this tags also. So, but for now, let's just continue doing this. So as you can see, I've added those tags, from the board, and they currently show up under the work items. Yes, and these tags are actually what will show up on the sprint board. Um, if I take this as a backlog item, so let me see. Yes, so we currently have. Oh, okay, so and these tags are the ones that will show up on the springboard. So if I want this particular tags to show on the springboard, I can actually move, this to my current iteration. And if I go back to the sprint now, you will notice that I currently have, you know, these work items on my sprint board. All right, so this is how it looks like, on the iteration board. But for today, we are not looking at the iteration board. I will talk about how we can actually set this, you know, how does this iteration board, how does this sprint board works in one of my upcoming video. So I'm going to go back to, the board where we can actually see our user story. We can also add our bugs from here if I want to add, a bug. And let's say we have a bug to say slow page loading. We can decide to add um, a tags to this particular bug also to say check the CN. So something like this. When you are creating your tags from the board, you can actually link them directly or create them from the user story or from the bug itself, so that you do not need to start linking them after you have actually created the tags. And also we can add it to our iteration, our sprint, just the same way we've added the user story. So if I go back to the sprint after I've added that one, so you can see I can also have my bug as my iteration work item, which I've actually explained the other side. The other work item that can be added as an iteration work item is actually the issue, which we might take a look at soon. So if I go back to this board, now you can see that we can only add the work item. So you can change, if you want to add the features or the epic from the board also, you can do that by changing, which whatever you need to add here. So you can see I can have those also, so from here it's easy for me to start adding the user story, then add the bug to my particular work item, which is the epic work item. Also, I can also add an epic item from here also. Then from the epic item, I can decide to, add a feature, add a test. One thing you will notice that you cannot directly add a tax to either your epic or to your feature, because that tax works directly with your bug or your user story, which we call the product backlog items, or the iteration item. So you can only add tags directly to your bug, to your issue, or to your user story. You cannot add them directly to the epic or directly to your feature. So if you decide to start adding, any particular work item there, like the user story, so you can create a new user story and add that particular user story to, your epic. Then from there, you can decide to now add, maybe a bug or add a task to that user story. So that's how we manage items on the board. So you know let's now go back to the work item, which are the tasks that we've created. So like let's say you change layout. Okay, let me go back to the board items and the backlogs item, sorry. So you can see, because they are unparented, so you can decide to add a parent, to this particular bug. So when they say they are unparented, because this particular bug that you can see here, and also, this particular user story wasn't added to any epic or wasn't added to any feature, and that's why you can see they are unparented features, or unparented user stories. So when you add them or when you create them from maybe your epic or from the feature, then you've actually linked them to a particular parent. So I think we can move on to work items, like I said. So let's take a look at least adding these work items. I'm not going to explain each of these fields, because I've done that in one of my previous videos where I explain the work item processes and also each of these fields description. Um, Talking about the description field, the discussion, depending on the work item you've actually added to your board. Then I think we can move on to how do we even move the work state, how do we change the state, which I think I showed you the other time. So if I view this as board, just hold on. So you can either view by backlogs or you want to view by bug. So if I view this by bugs, so you can move the bug to active, and it goes along with all you know the tasks that have been assigned to this board. Same thing if it's resolved or if it's closed, you can do the same for this. However, when you are working with your sprint, you cannot move, the the main work item, which is the user story or the bug on the sprint to active or close. So if I try to do the same here, you will see that this will not move. The only thing I can move is actually the tags that have been assigned to that bug, or the tags that have been assigned to that user story. So that's that. Like I said, we're going to be discussing the sprint in one of the coming videos. So we explain. But on the board, you can actually move. So if I change this back to stories, you can actually move your work items, which are the user story or the bug, from new to active to resolve. So you can just take a look at all the work items under these this particular process. Each of these work items, like I've actually explained, which I've explained each of these field. You can take a look at the epic, the feature, even the tags or the bug, or create your issue, and try to at least play around each of these work items to see how this works. Try to add, um, these work items under the parent, add them as child, push them to the sprint, check how the iteration works, and this should be fine. So thank you for joining. See you in the next video.